All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Jack Stucco, and I'm the president and CEO of Irvine. Thank you all for coming out today. I know there's a lot of energy in the room, but I try to settle down a little bit. That's what we do here today. Daniel, thank you so much for hosting us to the facility. Thank you for providing us the weather. I was just asking you summer. We'll work on that a lot. And then Terry, you and your team, TD Bank, thank you so much. 18 years we've been hosting these events with TD Bank, so that's a very long-standing and strong partnership. I really just want to say thank you and appreciate all of you coming out and spending time. We're living in a very dynamic world. It's in some sort of flux minute to minute. Trying to grapple through all those things, and I know we get really caught up in a lot of the day-to-day critical things that we deal with. I'm convinced that that's killing us as individuals, families, communities, companies, and society. And so more than ever, it's important to step back and really get some perspective and think a little differently about how is it that we want to engage and interact with everything that's going on around us. So very much looking forward to today's presentation. We have an amazing presenter. We've had time to talk and know each other a little bit. I'm looking forward to so again, thank you all so much for coming out. So with that, I know Daniel's going to say a few words of welcome to this great facility. I'll turn it over to Terry for a minute and then we'll get started.
Can everybody go? All right? Yeah? Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you all in here. I'm Ron Martinez. From a strong accent, you can figure it out that I'm from around here. Originally from Spain, and I'm the managing director of this property. I was lucky enough to be called by Mrs. Sheila Johnson, who is, I guess everybody knows, she has been in the city from 1974, and she is very well known for all the philanthropy and a lot of things that she has done on supporting the national mall and creating this beautiful company, Salamanca Hotels and Resorts. The first property of our company was built in Virginia, in Middleborough, 10 years ago. And right now we have 7 properties around the United States and 1 property in the Caribbean, in Jamaica. So I'm very happy to have you all in here. We just completed in December a $40 million renovation. I think those that they came here on Mandarin Tax, they have seen how much we have enhanced the lobby, the arrival experience. We have renovated the suites. We have right now a great restaurant called Durban. We opened in September, and within 3 months, we managed to get from the Washington the #2 spot as the best restaurant in Washington, D.C. And we are partnering for that restaurant with Chef Wabion. We have you all in here, and thank you to everybody. Jack, Daniel, everybody in the board of trade for being in here, and I would like to introduce you to Terry Kenny, the market president for Washington D.C., Baltimore, and Delaware City Bank. Thank you very much. We'll make it happen. We always make it happen.
So thank you all for coming out this morning, and it was delightful to have coffee out there. It was spectacular. I was thinking maybe we could convince you to pull class outside like a professor, but probably better to keep us all near QADD to be going outside today. But really this year we're doing a 3-part series. This is the first one. It's all about leadership, and I think as Jack said, it's now more than ever essential that we return to the core principles of leadership. And today we're going to learn about emotional intelligence from Dr. Irvine Nugent. So he's a leading expert in emotional intelligence and conflict management. He was born and raised in Northern Ireland, and for those of you that know, certainly during a time of deep division known as the Troubles. And I think he saw firsthand the consequences of broken down communication, etc. So he now has over 15 years of senior leadership. He trains professionals to build self-awareness, regulate emotions, and build stronger teams through better communication. He's a gifted storyteller, as all Irish people are. He brings practical strategy, real-world insight, and a signature Irish humor to every session. So we're so pleased to have you here today, and I'm very much looking forward to your presentation. So thank you.
Good morning, everyone. How's the volume? Do I need a microphone? We're good. Okay. If I do, just put up your hands. I can't hear you. My mother constantly told me growing up. So I still, I learned nothing. I still speak a lot. So today, we don't have a lot of time, so I want to explore some of the core elements of emotional intelligence. I want to give you 3 ideas to take home that you will find hopefully beneficial as you navigate these very interesting times. And you know, at times when we think about leadership, you know, we kind of think, well, you know, I'll put my leadership path. You know, it's this, and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go here, etc., etc. And yet, we get into it, and in reality, this is what it looks like. It's a hot mess. It's a hot mess. And of course, you know, we kind of think, well, we're living in dynamic times. Times have never been as worse as they are. And of course, that's true until the next time. And then the next time, and the next time. And the reality is that change, flux, is a constant. And we have to change mindset. And so today I want to talk a little bit about what are some ideas, especially in the world of emotions. You know, when I was preparing for today, I knew that TD Bank were sponsoring, and they did this wonderful, wonderful campaign, which is called Unexpectedly Human. You get a chance to go to YouTube and look up the videos. They're great. This is about the humanity. And in reality, that's the core message here. That yes, things are changing, and it's unpredictable. But at the core of business is relationship. That's not changing. At the core of how we manage ourselves is our knowledge of emotions. And that's not changing. Now, emotions can sometimes be met with, I don't know about this. We work a lot in the scientific community locally here. And so when you get a group of engineers or scientists who say, we're going to talk to you about your emotions today, the room kind of falls silent with, oh, really? Emotions? It's not about emotions. And unfortunately, it's how we're made. So, what do I want to cover today? I want to give, first of all, language around the space that we were in business. Because I think at times we're exasperated trying to describe what's happening and how we might show up. So I want to give a little language around that. It's called the VUCA world. Then I want to move from there and identify a little bit about our emotional trigger print. Because the reality is, in these times, we've never been more triggered than we are today. How do we manage that? That's really important. And then finally, I want to kind of give an idea and something for you to consider about how might I show up? What should my presence be as a leader in these times? And that's what I call less anxious present. Don't worry, we're going to get a copy of the slides sent out to you, so you don't have to take pictures. You can take pictures if you want, it's up to you. But anyway, if you're taking pictures because you're afraid you're going to lose, don't worry, it'll be sent out after the presentation. Okay, so in the middle of the Cold War, the Army was tasked with trying to predict what the world would be like. How do we describe the atmosphere that we're in? And they came up with an acronym. And although it was back in the Cold War, I love this acronym because I think it puts language into the experience that we go through day in, day out. And that language was the language of VUCA, V-U-C-A. And what does VUCA stand for? It is, first of all, we live in volatile times. Yeah? Change, massive change. Just think about it. In the last 6 years, how much change we have gone through. Yeah? February 2020, we were all doing our thing, and then all of a sudden, 1 month later, the whole world went upside down. We're going through a constant change here, especially in the DC area at the moment. Lots of change. People have different opinions about that change. But it's change, it's massive change. And the reality is we have to live with that volatility. The second is uncertainty. I remember in my early days, I was just sharing with Amy here in the front that I also started in the nonprofit world. And I'm not sure if you did the same, I'm sure, but we used to have things like 10-year plans and 5-year plans. Remember? We put a lot of effort, this months. And I said, good luck. Good luck trying to predict now. Good luck, we don't even know what's going to happen next month. Now that doesn't mean we shouldn't be planning, of course we should. But we live in uncertain times. There's nothing given. It's hard to predict what's going to happen next. The third idea is complexity. We live in a network of relationships. At times, someone is impacted here, and we have no idea of these networks of relationships that are impacted. I remember I needed a car part. My car broke down a year ago. And the dealer said it'll take 2.5 months for this car part because the car part was made in Ukraine. So an unintended consequence of something and the complexity of supply lines meant that I was dealing with something, but how do I deal with that? And then the fourth one is ambiguous. We have never been in a time where we know so much information. Google, AI, we're just in the cusp of what AI can do. And yet things seem ambiguous. Like, what's really happening here? Do I have enough information? I have too much information. It's almost I'm overwhelmed with information. So what's important here is this is the state. This VUCA is something we live and breathe every day. And the point I want to make is that does not come easy to human beings. As human beings, we love predictability. As human beings, we love safety. As human beings, we love certainty. That doesn't mean we can't adapt. But what I want us to appreciate is this takes a toll. And at times you just motor on day after day, and we wonder, why am I so tired? Why am I so exhausted? What's happening? And it's because we're in this world. And what we've got to learn, of course, is this is not changing. Sorry, not going to change. So here, I want to, throughout my little presentation, I'm going to have a little discussion group. So here's the first one. I want you to discuss at your tables, or you can split up your large table. How has VUCA impacted your work, your life, your relationships? Have you noticed? Does that make sense? Does volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, how does that impact you? I think every conversation I had this morning was a VUCA conversation. So I'm going to give you a few minutes. Introduce yourselves at your table if you haven't yet. Just have a little, what are some thoughts around volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity? As in advance, I give you topics that you probably spend an hour talking about. I want to give you a little flavor and so you can continue the conversation another time. Okay, why is this important? This is important because as human beings, this impacts how we show up. And how we show up is incredibly important. So within us is an internal radar system. It is inbred, it's inbuilt, it comes from our evolutionary past. We are constantly looking for danger. Constantly. We cannot turn this off. And when danger happens, we go into an automatic response, which is fueled by our emotions. Now, when you love emotions, hate them or not, you ain't going to stop us. This is part of our system, and it is beautiful. We're here today because of it. We survived. Yay! Unfortunately, it gets us into trouble at times. So this is where we want to kind of take it and develop it. So what's happening here? Well, first of all, we need to understand what is an emotion. You know, we throw emotions out all the time. But really, what is it? Now, if you were in the 1960s and went to university and you said, I'm going to study emotions, they would have laughed you out of university. Are you kidding me? You can't study emotions. Psychology was all about behavioralism, external, what we can see, and emotions are internal. We can't study emotions. Well, one gentleman changed that. His name is Paul Ekman. Paul Ekman really is the grandfather of research around emotions, and he enabled kind of our modern notion of emotional intelligence. Well, Paul Ekman was being interviewed, and he said, well, tell us about emotions. And he said this, and I love this. It's short, it's sweet, and it gets to the point. Emotions help us deal with matters of importance to our welfare without thinking. Without thinking. Now, what I love about that is it really gets to the core of what's happening when emotions happen. First of all, Emotions, we just didn't evolve with emotions, just, I know it's good to have emotions. No, each and every emotion was important. It's a gift to us. I always say emotions are such a gift to the human person because they are conveyors of information that something is happening that is important to our welfare. So there's the obvious emotions, like fear. Why do we get fearful? Why have fear? Danger, we're in danger, we're threatened. Okay? Why do we get happy? Why do we get happy? Enjoyment, yeah, the social bonding. Remember, we grew up in a tribe. It's that social cohesion, that joy. Why get sadness so often, Now, the problem is socially, some emotions are stigmatized. I grew up saying there are good emotions and there are bad. Which emotions are commonly labeled as bad? Anger. Don't get angry. Whoa. Or sadness sometimes. And then when you think about sadness, let me just spend just a few seconds on sadness. Why have sadness? Well, sadness is about loss. And when we go into a period of loss, part of us withdraws. That's important. We have to lick our wounds. We need time to refocus, to recenter. Well, if you're in a tribe back in caveman and cavewoman days, that's a dangerous time because you're withdrawing. And so we show sadness in the face, and someone sees my sadness, and what happens when you see my sadness more often? You become sad. You begin to empathize with me, and you bring me in. See how beautiful the evolution of these emotions are? So emotions are there, and the second thing that is without thinking. Emotions are so quick. They happen before you can. The quickest emotion is surprise, 0.5 in a second. The slowest emotion is sadness. And if you're trying to squelch them, good luck. Because they'll still show in the face. And if you become a facts coder, like I am, then you're able to detect those hidden emotions. Because they'll still flash in your face. So these emotions are important. Now, why are they important? Because it helped us survive. So if you wake up one morning, you walk out, there's a woolly-haired mammoth in front of you. Here's what you didn't say. Oh, look, woolly-haired mammoth. Wow. Looks angry. I think I should do something. What are my options? Well, I could stay, I could run back into the cave, or I could just run. That didn't happen. We automatically reacted. And that's wonderful. The problem is, as human beings, we take every situation as a life and death. And not every situation is. Not every situation is. So therefore, it's very important for us to recognize the symptoms that happen when you're triggered. Let's go back to fear. Okay? So what happens when we're afraid? First of all, a message goes to the brain. Hey brain, threat. Gotta deal with it. So it says, okay, let's take oxygen from the brain and divert it to the rest of the body. How do you think the brain operates with less oxygen? Not very well. Not the time to do your higher end thinking. Then a message goes to the heart. Hey heart, pump more. We don't know what's going to happen. We need the heart rate risen. Then a message goes to the lungs. Breathe more. We have to be prepared to react. Message goes to the stomach. Hey stomach, not the time to eat now. Your life's in danger. We're going to take blood from your stomach. That's why at times when we're fearful, we begin to feel nauseous. Then a message goes to the eyes, adrenaline. And the adrenaline, we're looking for something. What are we looking for? Oh, we're looking for that word, exit. Where is the exit? Then a message goes to the throat. Shut up. And so all the saliva is drained so that you can't make noise. That's why I work a lot with people who are afraid of speaking and do these courses. And of course, it's always the number one fear. That's why people get dry throat. The fear, it's a reaction to fear. And then finally, all that oxygen, all that adrenaline, it's all built up, and you can't go anywhere, so what happens? You start shaking. This is beautiful and inconvenient. Because when you're in a meeting and you're feeling a little bit threatened, you go into this. And that's not really helpful in the moment. Because, as far as I know, most people have come alive out of meetings. I have been in a few where I thought, maybe I'm not going to, this is like, I don't know, this is kind of, I don't know if I'm going to come alive here. So, what's important here? What is our emotional trigger? What triggers that response? me speaking and coaching leaders and training leaders for many years. Here's a flavor of a few that I've heard. You may have your own, and in fact, I want you to think as we speak, what are my triggers? What gets me going? So here's some. Angry takeover. Monday morning, everything's great. You have a wonderful weekend. You walk in, you get on the phone. The first phone call, it's someone who's barking down the line to you. And you're like, ooh, I got my coffee. And I'm triggered. Second one, negative comment. You ever been in a meeting and someone just loves in a little comment? You're like, what was that? Where did that come from? And of course, they've moved on, but you haven't. Oh no, you're in the story now. Oh, I know what this is about. That's after instead of you being triggered. Third one, budget cuts. Yep, we're in a time, constantly in a time of budget cuts. Real, imagined. I remember I took over, I was president of Catholic Charities in the state of Florida. In a previous career, I took over as CEO, and one of the things that was a rampant rumor, and it was a rumor, was that there was budget cuts. No matter what is it? No, there's not again. People were just constantly in that state. Lack of clarity. Whoa, we're in a lack of clarity. I just feel, we wanted, God, I just have clarity. Colleagues who don't deliver. I'm sure you all have the perfect workforce. Everyone is fine, but sometimes you run into people who don't deliver. Rapid change. Being talked over. Ever been in a meeting where, you're trying to get your idea across and someone just talks over you. Just coaching someone, this was their constant problem. And when someone talked over them, they shut up. And that's when I started coaching. I said, well, this is not helpful. We need your voice. What's your voice is being shut down. So let's strategize. How do we stop this? And then the boss is not good. When the boss walks in, let me tell you, that temperature, we'll talk a little bit about this the next time. And then being left out of the loop. Ever been in a long email chain all of a sudden? Why wasn't I included earlier? So these are popular. You may have your own. So I want to give you a little chance to have a discussion with you. What are your trigger points? What's unique to you? What resonates there and what's not there that should be there if it was about you? Okay, so I'll give you a few minutes to discuss. Here's what I'd love to do is I would love to hear one or two triggers that were not on the list. Anyone got a trigger? Person who's negative and never brings a solution. Can anyone relate to that? Any other triggers? Yes, sir.
Lack of honesty.
Lack of honesty. Yeah. And one more. One other. Yes, sir.
Inability to be succinct.
The inability to be succinct. I love this one. This is one of mine. And when I know the person well, and I can be upfront with it, I always say, what I always say to them is, land the plane. Oh. Land the plane. Yeah, so I'll just do this thing. So why is that important? It's so important to know our triggers because when we are triggered, it impacts our ability to make decisions. Very often what happens is we feel anxiety and we rush to make decisions. And if there's one thing we know in the business world today, decisions very often are complex. They need a level of curiosity and thoughtfulness. And to rush into them can cost us. There's a whole host of things. So what do we do? Well, there's a little exercise I created, which is, it would be great if in a meeting you were triggered, you were able to say, okay, everyone, I'm a little triggered. Can we just kind of take a minute to breathe? But we can't do that. I wish we could. I think our meetings would be so much better. But anyway, but because we can't, this is one you can do by yourself in the moment. It's called a 7-second reset. So second number one is place your feet on the ground. And in placing your feet on the ground, you get the physicality and you're out of your emotional brain. Seconds 2, 3, and 4, we're breathing in. And we're just noticing, what's happening in my body? Where's the tension? Is it my shoulders, my jaw? Am I angry? Have I moved in? Or have I detached from the meeting? And then seconds 5, 6, and 7 is what might I do to be more present in this moment? And make the adjustment. Very simple, nothing revolutionary, but it takes a practice to get to institute time and time. So there's a little practice, 7 seconds. So the final idea I want to leave you with is this idea of less anxious presence. I grew up in the north of Ireland. I grew up in a pub. I lived above a pub. Yep. And it's the stereotype. And my father had cows on a farm next door. Everything. Well, there was a problem. The cows were wanderers because in Ireland we don't really have a lot of fences. So my father installed an electric fence. Let me tell you, for an 8-year-old, the electric fence is a thing of wonder. And so I understood, I rode the electric fence, and I was wondering what would happen if the cow hit the fence. I know, not very PC, but I was always hoping that one of the cows would touch it, just to see what would happen. One day, it happened. The cow hit the fence, it let a noise out, ran into the center of the field, and all the other cows gathered around. It was almost as if instantaneously the distress had been caught by the herd, and it went in to protect. Now, we are very sophisticated people, but you know what? We kind of function like cows every night. We begin to feel the anxiety of others. In fact, there's a whole term called emotional contagion. We catch the emotions of other people.
In the back.
You know, COVID, we were already masked. I can't, this virus out there, I can't get it. And yet, from time immemorial, we've been catching each other's emotions. And what's more, the leader's emotions are more important than anyone else's. Because people are looking to us as leaders. What is the emotional temperature? In a meeting where the leader is there, they're always looking at the leader. What's happening? What's the leader think? If the leader's not saying anything, then you're getting a story. Why don't say anything? And then you say something, you look to the leader. How is that received? And we're doing this. Sometimes unconsciously, but we are doing it. So, the reality is, how then, so the question is, what's the best way for me to lead in this turmoil? What presence is called from me? And I want to give you this idea of a less anxious presence using the emotional contagion. This is the ability to embody and communicate inner calm that helps others lower their anxiety. So in a highly anxious atmosphere, in a highly anxious organization, it's the showing up with less anxiety that others catch. And if you show up with more, people will catch that. The temptation as a leader is for you to ratchet up to the anxiety you see around you. And I have a term for this which is called a step-down transformer. A transformer takes electrical current and it either raises it or lowers it. So as a step-down transformer, as leaders, we take the current, the emotional state, and we bring it down. And so an step-down transformer maintains a presence that is less anxious. You say, Irvine, that's great. Well, what does that mean? And so I want to give you just a few ideas about how you show up. How am I being? And what am I doing? Well, first of all, I'm calm. Curiosity is such a leadership trait. And in anxious times, we lose our curiosity. But to be curious, to ask the deeper questions, the bigger questions. To be centered with ourselves, to know how we're feeling. To be observant. Are we really observing those around us? What are we picking up? Are we picking up the nonverbals? And are we listening? You know, if I said, how many people here are great listeners? Most people will raise their hand. And yet the reality is, it's tough to listen. Because we're so distracted. And when you encounter someone who's truly listening to you, boy, that's enough. Their presence is unique. And you remember them. And you say, well, I'm too busy to listen. But yet, even if you have a few minutes of connected listening, the impact is huge. What am I doing? I'm asking questions. I'm focusing on facts. So often, when there's emotional turmoil and anxiety, etc., it's what do we know? It's coming back to that, what do we know? What don't we know? And can we focus on the facts? To recognize resistance. You know, so often I've coached leaders, great leaders, who are driving through change, and they'll say, I'm a failure. Why are you a failure? Because everyone doesn't want the change. And I said, well, how have you gone about it? And they'll explain, well, I've listened to this, and I've done this, and I've done that. I said, you've done everything right. What you haven't accounted for is humanity. And human beings resist change, and it is a normal cycle. So not to beat yourself up. Resistance sometimes sabotages you. And it's not a sign that you've done something wrong. It's actually a sign that you might be doing something right. And then finally, manage your own cycle. The greatest gift that you can offer your team is a well-regulated nervous system. It's the greatest gift you can offer your team. How well are you regulating? So, on your tables, you'll find a little inventory. We're not going to get to it today, but it's just a little food for thought. It's a little pulse meter on how are you dealing with change? How are you showing up? And there's questions in there to just to help you gauge where you're at. So if you just want to spend a few seconds, just go through kind of the questions, have a look at them there. They're very thought-provoking. I just want to bring you to that last question. I take care of my health physically and emotionally, and I'm able to sustain my leadership efforts over time. Folks, we're in the long-term game. Anyone can do emergency management for months. But we're talking about leadership over a career. And unless we're taking care of ourselves, and we're really paying attention to that, then it's hard to be resilient. Let me give you two little practices as I kind of lead you today. The first practice is, I always get it'd be great to have all these practices there, but I don't have time. And I said, you have 1 minute. I said, sure, I will. I want you to create a list of 1-minute activities that would energize you. It would energize you emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually. You know, you can think of things, well, what would that be like? Could you just breathe? Watch a minute of a comedy on YouTube. Take some time to go for a walk, look out the window. Touch something that's very soothing. Light a candle and smell the odor. Whatever it is, I have a friend who works at a career in emergency management. Stressful job. And I said, how do you deal with it? He said, well, I've got one of those Yankee candles. And he said, it's the fir flavor. And to me, my place is the mountains. I want to get to the mountains, but I can't. So I light the candle, and I sniff it a little bit, and I think about walking the mountains. And I blow it out just a minute, and it just re-energizes. So it's building in these little practices which make huge differences. Just 1 minute. The second practice I want is about daily transitions. You know, each and every day we have a choice in how we show up. And because of the trains that we're on, this rush, we don't do that thoughtfully enough. So one of the practices that I have, and I try to share it, is before any meeting, before I go into work in the morning, before I come home from work in the evening, I take a couple of minutes and I say to myself, how am I feeling and how do I want to show up? Not that this is magic, not if you're coming in upset and all of a sudden, no, I'm not upset. But you know what can be wonderful for it? Where you walk in and you're upset, the first thing they're thinking is, what have I done? Why is he upset? Why is she upset? And to be able just to say, you know, folks, I'm just coming from another situation, I'm a little upset. It's not us. So it's that presence, that gift. And to give a gift to our family at home, to know what are we carrying from work before I that threshold, that doorway. Or before I go to work, sometimes the burden's at home. You know, not that we can change it, but we're aware of it, we're aware of our presence. So I just finally want to, I developed a little course. It's an EQ roadmap. I invite anyone who wants to take it. It is free. There is no newsletter attached to it. You're not going to be asked to buy 6 talks by Irvine Nugent at the end of it. It's just completely, it digs in a little bit deeper to emotional intelligence, and it gives you some practical exercises, more about practical exercises, and hopefully as well, if you don't see it now, you'll get it as well in the handouts. But thank you, and thank you for your work. It's not easy. I think leadership is an act of bravery, because it's easy to hide. But as a leader, we have to stand up, and that takes courage. So thank you for the courage, thank you for your leadership, and just take care of yourself, because the world needs you resilient and fighting and emotional. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and thank you all, Terry, and thank you very much for listening on the conversation. Thank you for joining us today. One thing that I've been doing, my New Year's resolution was to put my phone off more often than not. That's actually working tremendously, especially these days, because you know there's good news. Walk away, your mental well-being moves dramatically, so I encourage you to try that. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us today. And the next one is June 26th at MGM. Next conversation we're having on this, so that's right, 26th.
Yep.